the very first assessment you make about your favorite characters in books, movies, or television is visual, how they look and what they wear. Welcome to Johnetta Boone's world. From script to screen, she has created some of the most iconic looks which have made an impact on fashion, as well as in your favorite movies, television shows, and magazines. We get to hear from the woman within the Vanity team how dressing a character down to the tiniest details sets you as the viewer for the story. Now, let's get to business. Today, I have with me a style icon. Like, we were talking before the show, and you couldn't shut me up about everything. Johnetta Boone, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Tatiana.
Oh, we are going to talk fashion. We're going to talk shows because you are a woman on the go right now. You are doing everything.
Yeah. I'm definitely on the go and definitely out there in all the pieces, in all the areas, doing all the things. Well, not all the things, but.
Well, you're up in New York, correct?
I actually live in the DC area.
I
live in DC.
So you're out here with us miserable in this weather on the East Coast,
I am.
correct?
I am. Yes, I am.
All right, let's start this. How did you get into costume design and the career you wanted to pursue? Like, where did you start?
I can actually say that my whole career started in the fashion industry because there was no segue into costume design when I was in school. I went to a performing arts high school. I studied art. I then went to FIT in New York and studied fashion design and merchandising. There were no costume design programs then. Most of all costume design programs that were in place at the time were in LA. Unless it was for theater, and theater is not the direction that I was thinking to go. And because of that, I also had the opportunity to shift into the styling world I would say with ease, because a very dear friend, her aunt was an editor at one of the high-end editorial magazines. She left the magazine and started to work as a freelance stylist, and we were just coming to New York. And she said, very clearly, I fired my sixth assistant. Would you guys like a job? And we're like, yes. And she said, I need you to do as I do as I say. I'm not paying you for your voice. And we said, okay, great. And then that was that was the beginning. So we went forward and worked very hard, diligently, doing everything that she asked us to do without question for years, for decades. And then she launched us out on our own. And my girlfriend, a very good friend of mine, she is very well known in her rights in journalism and in the industry as well. And then we shifted over. And then it wasn't until I got to the DC area that I shifted into film. I was doing a television show in New York because I got a little bit tired of doing still photography. At that time, everything was frozen except for editorials. And we did editorials as well, but I wanted a bit more of living and breathing fashion. So I came to the DC area to give birth to my oldest son and was able to work on films. It was very interesting because at the very beginning, they didn't want to hire me in this area because I was a stylist. And they thought that I didn't understand motion picture and how things worked. And so I actually ended up, my first assisting job came on Runaway Bride. I was assisting Albert Walski, who's an amazing costume designer. And he and I together built that whole, built the collection of characters. And then he went on to share me with his colleagues, and everyone that came into the DC area was calling upon myself to support them with their costumes on the shows that they were building. And the designers took me under their arms and taught me everything that I know. And then it shifted from there. So I've had wonderful opportunities to work with Colleen Atwood and Joanna Johnston. And it's just amazing, the designers that really imparted their wisdom into me as not a designer then, but just as a costumer. And I just ate, slept, and drank every bit of wisdom that they shared, which then shaped my career to what it is now.
When you have a project come to you, what is the process that you go through to create the characters on the pages to come to life?
So the very first thing that I do, that's a great question, Tatiana, is I read the script. And I read the script multiple times because that's where the characters come to life. The writer has written the screenplay, and then I will speak with the showrunner if it's a TV series, and I would speak with the producers or the director if it's a movie, a feature, and then we will talk about who the characters are. And sometimes I'm working on projects and they just give me full flight to just do what I do, which is really fantastic. And we just sit down and collaborate. And then from that, the characters jump off the page and sort of, I say, speak life to me, and then I depict who they are with cloth and build their characters. And in a lot of cases, the actors themselves haven't had a moment to decide who their characters are. They rely on me to build the character for them through their costumes, and then they give breath to the character, and the character comes to life.
I recently just had John Emmett Tracy on the podcast. We were
Oh, I
talking
love
about
it.
Yellowstone
Yes.
and all the things that he was doing. He stated just what you were talking about,
Mm,
that the style of the suits that Elliot Steele was wearing was completely different than Jamie Dutton. And what John Dutton is wearing is completely different than what Rip is wearing.
that's correct. And so what happens is John Emmett Tracy's character, Ellis Steele, was a corporate Mongol. He worked for, a large corporation that's out doing real estate ventures and larger ventures within the state of Montana and other likes and New York. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that he had a bit of style and flair that was not in keeping with the Montana area. Montana businessmen, wear very corporate and clean, I call it, attire. A lot of it's period, because they're not buying suits every year. They're wearing the same suit that they purchased 20 years ago if they can still fit it, and most of them can. And it doesn't matter to them that they're wearing new suits. But for John's character, for Ellis Steele, it was about color, which I had pop. It's about texture in his suit weavings with plaids and stripes. All those things matter, and they tell the story. And the difference between him and Jamie, for instance, Jamie was the attorney general, and while his suits were very stylized, the colors were very clean, they were very corporate, but you could tell that he was younger and not, so he was allowed to have a little more flavor with his cut and his fit. And we did peak lapels for him instead of just a regular notch collar lapel. So there were things like that. And then John Dutton himself, when he became governor and started wearing suits, he and I sat down and talked about it because I typically tailor everything. And he says, no, let's not tailor the suit because I hate wearing suits. I own a ranch. I'm not wearing suits all the time, so my suits don't need to fit perfectly. Nothing needs to fit perfectly. And I said, you're absolutely right. And so together we built John Dutton's character as both the ranch owner and as the governor. And so that's pretty much how the division comes between the styles and where you draw the lines and how it is that you etch out the characters in the act and give the actors a place to lean on to continue to build who it is that they're portraying.
You just brought up you sat with Kevin Costner and you guys brainstormed those intimate details,
Yes.
like creating those characters and what people, when they see that on the screen, how does it evolve the story even more and make it even more personal to the viewer?
Yes. Well, it does, because what happens is when there's authenticity in the costumes, and if the viewer is familiar with that environment, then it allows them to have a personal relationship with who those characters are. And that's where it all sort of comes to life again as well.
You had mentioned how you started your creative genius. has been the focus of costumes and wardrobes, but you also started out with editorials. How was your styling different from doing photo shoots to film?
Great, great, great question. Styling is so different than doing photo shoots, than doing film, because when you're styling, you're not styling characters, you're styling environments, you're styling fantasy. And a lot of those images aren't depicted in real life. You have models that are 10 feet tall, they're gazelles, they're giraffes, they're beautiful women who are a -0 in their size or a double 0. So everything just drapes their body perfectly, especially if they were fit for them. That's a completely different life and a different kind of environment than building characters for film and television. When you're building characters, you're building based upon perhaps real figures that you are then having portrayed in the storytelling of whatever their life was or whatever the life is that the writer has given it. And a lot of those images people can really associate themselves with. People associate themselves with moms and dads and children and family members. If it's a fantasy piece, that's a little bit different. If it's, something that where you've got, armor, it's Iron Man or something of that nature, that's a little different than if you're building characters that are family oriented or friends or peers or colleagues or businessmen or women, for instance. So when you're building characters, all the elements of style have to be put in a different category because style is communicated differently for each person. It was so wonderful. I was in a Starbucks many years ago, and I could not take my eyes off of someone that I saw sitting at a table. And it was a gentleman, and he had a Dutch boy haircut, and he was pretty full in size. And I just thought, what an amazing look he has. He had cut bangs. It was a bob. He had on these Peabody eyewear glasses, a shirt and a tie. He didn't have on a jacket, and he was just sitting there studying. And I said, "Oh my gosh, he's fascinating to look at." Those are the kind of people that I build my characters off of if they fit within the story. There was another woman I saw, I've seen homeless people that bring to life when I'm doing a film and I have homeless people in the film, then I pull on that research that I have etched in my brain to create those characters, right down to the cowboys in Yellowstone. I live in an environment, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, but there are small farms all around where I live. And there were cowboys that rode regularly that I could use as a research item, as well as the fact that I did a little riding when I was in high school myself. So it wasn't foreign to me. It wasn't a foreign element for me to be able to build those characters.
You just, I'm so like, I have to take a moment right now because I'm letting all of this sink in and I'm
Yes,
thinking back to all of the movies that I've watched
yes,
from your beginnings of when you first got into costume design. And I'm thinking about Devil Wears Prada and all of the
yes,
quotable things that people just roll out
yes,
and how close to reality it is. Like you were just
yes,
saying, you take all of these pieces of what you see out there and you
yes,
bring them to the film. I'm astounded. I'm
yes.
astounded right now.
I mean, Meryl Streep's character was a part of Anna Wintour, or the other editors at Vogue. They were real people that all collectively came together that created her character, and it's
Now,
fascinating. And so that's what you do, in life is I use all of the experience that I have in day to day to build a research library for myself that I then go back and pull upon to use when I'm building characters in productions.
your son Justin is titled as your assistant costume designer. He also has quite a presence in fashion himself, doesn't he? Did
He
he
sure
did he
does.
learn
He
that
sure
from
does.
mom?
Well, I would say that Justin has been a part of this industry since he was conceived. Because I never stopped working. I just worked nonstop. I went into labor when I was pregnant with his younger brother. I was working. I was costume supervising West Wing, and I went into labor. Not a hard labor, but but my labor started, and it was funny because a transpo driver said, "When do you do?" And I said, "Oh, in about a week." And he looked at me. He says, "I don't think you have a week." And he says, "Where's your hospital?" Which literally was like a stone's throw away from where we were filming. And I said, "It's over there." And he said, "Okay, great. Because if you go into labor, I'll make sure you get to the hospital," which was less than a 3-minute drive from where we were filming. So Justin, with the same thing, I was working the whole time when I was pregnant with him. Once I gave birth to him, I took some time off initially. And then the very first show that I worked on full time was Beloved. And that's where I got my roots, also working as a costumer. And then I was elevated to a key costumer on Beloved, helping to build characters. And Justin was in and out of that environment. And so he came in with me sometimes, when he was younger, and then he grew up and went to grade school and high school and college, and to find himself, he says, I don't want to do any of the things that I studied. And I said, well, come work with me as a production assistant on a show during his spring break. And then he says, I think I want to work in this industry. And I said, well, then you'll get trained. And I gave him to the people that were on my crew to get training, and they trained him. And then there he is today. And I was looking for an assistant. I've had just a couple of people work with me, and this one young woman that worked with me does very well. She's her own costume designer now, doing exceptionally well. Her name is Alex Bavard, and she does White Lotus, I believe it is. And so she was perfect. And once she stopped working with me and went on to do her own things, I said, oh my gosh, I have to start from ground zero again. How am I going to do this? And Justin was working with me as a costumer. And I said, well, if you want to do this full time, what do you think about being my assistant? And he said, sure. And it was great because he can finish my sentences. I don't have to have any questions or concerns about whether or not my vision is going to be taken and communicated to the character, to the cast, to the actors, and whether or not it's going to come to life with the characters, because he's seen me build from the ground up. He's seen me build from the foundation. So he gets it. It was a no-brainer, actually. And people, they think about that. Wow, your son works with you. How does that work? And it's like, it's perfect. I mean, there's not a better person who could be my assistant than someone who eats and sleeps and breathes on the same wavelength and on the same path. We study the same things. We have the same sense of style, so I don't have to wonder if I send him out for a pair of black brogues, what he's going to come back with. He comes back with exactly the right shoe. And all those things matter.
It absolutely does. And that leads me to my next question about your costume designing. You designed for Beyonce in the film Cadillac Records.
Yes.
And you had to transform her from icon Beyonce to icon Etta James.
Yes.
Like, what was that like?
It was fascinating. When she walked in the door, she's very humble and very soft-spoken, and you would never, outside of her Beyonce brand, you would never, she's just like your cousin Beyonce, or you would probably say your cousin B, right? Mm-hmm. So when she walked in the door, I said, okay, let's talk about, your becoming Etta James and how we're going to manifest you to become that character. And she looked at me and she says, I trust you to do whatever you need to do. I want to become Etta James. And I said, great, then let's go for it. And then that's where it was all birthed. So I presented her with sketches. We did fittings. We made her beautiful apparel that was very in keeping with the period. And she indeed was transformed into Etta James. And it's wonderful to see, because it's very difficult to remove yourself from someone who is in the mainframe and so visual in the entertainment industry, and to have the duty of transforming them into a character that is not at all associated with that world. It's a big undertaking. It's a huge undertaking. And I was just having this conversation with someone else to create it in a way that the audience believes that they are the character. That's Once you've done that and you've been able to accomplish that task, then I can say that I was able to do my job well.
Taking all of that, and also, especially with that project with Beyonce and changing her into Etta James, you also had hair, you had makeup,
Yes.
makeup of the
Yes.
time, working with the other artists to make the full look, to create those characters. How pinpointed do you have to work with other people too?
Yes, well, it's actually, interestingly enough, the term is the vanity team. And so the vanity team is hair, makeup, and costumes. And we all to come together collectively to collaborate on the look, especially of key featured actors who are portraying characters that are outside of themselves, which everyone does. But when you get a very prominent actor, it's more work to have to recreate them. So I would sit down with the hair department and the makeup artist, and we would take a look at all of the research that we've had and what it is that we're going to do to recreate this person as the character. And you almost have to close your eyes and open them back up again so that you see them visually only as the character and not as themselves. And that's a very challenging task at hand, because not always does the actor allow you to take them through this metamorphosis, because everyone is an individual and they want their individuality to come into play. And you have to remind them, this is not you as a person, this is you as this character. Well, I wouldn't wear that. Yes, we understand you wouldn't wear that. However, you need to wear this for the character.
Let's talk about creating costumes for period films, because
Yes,
Yellowstone alone, you're going from 1888 to present day
that's correct.
and creating all of these different characters and
Yes.
making, as you just said, someone walking in totally different shoes, making them have to believe they are there.
Yes, yes. So one of the most wonderful opportunities was to build the looks for the flashback sequence in 1883, 1889, which is when
Okay.
so that was one sequence in the show where before 1883 was introduced, where we did
Mhm.
that flashback sequence with the young John Dutton and or the earlier John Dutton
Mhm.
and the indigenous community. And it was fascinating because I relied upon the indigenous community to share with me what took place with the clothing then. Because we have so many renditions of what happened then, but it's only the actual culture itself that can specifically tell you all those fine details and what the meaning of them was, because everyone has a meaning that goes along with what it is that they wear. So to go with the elk teeth, to go with the bone that were used to create the chest plates, to go with the loincloth, to go with the beaver wraps that were on the braids of the hair. All of those things had purpose. I remember having pouches made for the women, for the tribal women that were both holding medicine and then also holding, relics that they held dear from their family members, perhaps. And I literally looked at one of the extras and I said, who can make these pouches for me? I didn't want to dare make them myself because they're sacred, right? And she says, my sister makes those pouches. And I said, oh my God. And her sister lived right around the corner from our shop. Now, what we would do is buy a piece of white or buckskin, untanned leather and just sew it together quickly. It took her 3 weeks to make it by hand because she brain tanned the leather, which is a sacred process within the indigenous Native American community. That's how they treat the leather and pray over it and do all these things. Well, that's why it felt real, because it was. We made um, the buffalo coat. It's all for Tim McGraw. Taylor said, I want him to be in a buffalo coat. And I said, all right. So we had a buffalo coat made for him. It was incredible. Actually, we had like 5 made, but absolutely incredible.
I have a question about there's a very, very powerful scene as to what you were just talking about between the indigenous community and the Dutton family. And it's a hugely powerful scene between Monica and Beth, where
Yes.
Monica gets held in a store, and it's totally a fashion scene. It's totally for
Yes.
girls.
Yes.
She gets held in a store, and the store owner thinks she's shoplifting, and Beth comes in and totally tears the store apart.
Yes.
You as the costume designer, to put Beth and Monica in those two completely different places. What was
Yes.
on in your head?
Well, it was the whole story because she didn't think she was shoplifting. She actually planted,
Mm-hmm.
she purposely created an environment that would indicate that she was shoplifting when she wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
because she felt that she didn't have a place there. So that was the beginning of the story. So Monica was a teacher at the college. So I put her in the apparel of the school, right? She was in a t-shirt that represented the school, a hoodie. So that's why the store owner thought that she was younger than she was. Told her that she had no place there because she couldn't afford what was in the store. Unbeknownst to her that she was John Dutton's daughter-in-law. So I needed to create this separation of those two worlds so that they translated like that, because Kelsey Asbley, who plays Monica, is beautiful. Like she's a model herself. So I had to do things to make sure that that wasn't transforming her. It wasn't communicating that she's this beautiful model. It needed to communicate that she was a young Indigenous woman. And then Beth, because she is who she is, we use animal print to to assist us with her being as just ferocious as she is, right? I mean, she's amazing, and she went animalistic in that scene, in that sequence, because she had to put in place her schoolmate. They were in school together, high school. She says, "I remember you from high school," along with the police officers. It's a small town. Everyone knows each other. So I had to make sure the arc was in place so that we could show the difference between the communities, the difference between the the cultures, the status, all of it. And those that's that's also very hard work to be able to maintain that environment. The littlest thing could change the authenticity of it.
Very much so. And with a lot of those strong, powerful women characters,
Yes.
you're also dealing with lingerie too, because
Yes.
there's some scenes in there.
Yes, there are
So,
some scenes.
yeah,
And in dealing with lingerie, because we've had several intimate scenes with Monica and Casey. And her lingerie is very different from the lingerie of Sarah Atwood and Jamie, right?
I love
So
that
we
you just
use,
brought that up. She was one of
yeah,
my favorites.
so I had to make sure that I said, and Beth and Rip.
Mhm.
So there's an arc that happens. Monica is very simple. And so her lingerie had to appear very simple. She wears Casey's undershirts, right? With
Yeah.
very modest bloomers.
Yes, very, very much so. Let's flip the coin and go to the haves and the have nots, which is ultra glamorous.
Yes. I actually did one season of the Have and Have Nots. I
Mhm.
wasn't able to stay on because I went on to do Greenleaf after that.
Mhm.
But it's great working with Tyler Perry, because when he says he wants a pair of Louboutins, he wants Louboutins. He doesn't want faux Louboutins. He doesn't want you to paint the bottoms of the soles red to give the appearance. He actually is also someone else who is very big on authenticity and very big on tradition and very big on style. He's very knowledgeable of style. And so he gives us the opportunity to bring that forth. And it's not, I went down to actually interview for Colored Girls, which is the first project I worked with them on. And I was very honored to have the opportunity to design that show. And it was after meeting with his studio head that he shared with me that, working here is very unconventional. It's not anything like anything you've ever done before, or not like any studio you've ever worked with before, because we sort of do things to the beat of our own drum. And I said, okay, great. And needless to say, that's very true. And he does absolutely give you license to do what it is that you do and do it best. And that's, it's wonderful when you have the opportunity to do that, because at no time do we go in as costume designers and tell actors how to act, or tell, screenwriters how to write the script, or, you know, cinematographers how to light the scene. We stick to costume design. And sometimes you're in a project, and the people, the producers and things that you're working with, they give themselves license to tell you how it is that people should be dressed. We are the creators of that world. For the most part, we are we're the professors, right? We've excelled in the area, and we're the ones building that trajectory. So it's great when you're working on a show where people actually value your worth and appreciate what it is that you bring to the table. They may make some recommendations, but they're not telling you how and when to do every single thing that you're doing, because it takes away from you being able to do your job.
You've not only done the dramas, but we bring up Tyler Perry. You did work on a Medea film, didn't you?
I worked on, yes, oh my gosh. I worked on one Medea film, and it was amazing how he is able to create that whole world and have everything manifested. He's very clever, super smart, and he gets it all done. That working with Tyler Perry is the first time I ever worked on a show where there were 6 cameras. So that means when there's 6 cameras, you're actually, there's no timeout. Everything has to be correct and everything has to be right, because the cameras are seeing everything all at the same time, all at the same time. So you don't have the opportunity to to make any mistake.
Dealing with Tyler Perry, how much did you laugh watching those scenes?
He's hysterical. He's absolutely
He's
hysterical. He would make us laugh all the time, just when the camera was rolling and when the camera wasn't rolling. We had to do everything that we could to keep from laughing out loud when we're rolling, when he makes those jokes or plays into, very, very funny lines. It's so much hard work. We're standing back, holding ourselves, to keep from laughing because he's hysterical. He's
yeah,
great.
and everybody has to be quiet, and
And
you're
everyone
sitting.
has to be quiet, and you're looking at the monitor, and you just, oh my gosh, you're hoping that they didn't hear you snicker, because you really want to just burst out laughing, but you have to hold it in like a sneeze.
And I asked John this too. What has been your favorite project you worked on?
I honestly would say Yellowstone. I also
Really?
worked on The Notebook, which was amazing
Mhm.
experience. It was fantastic. That was great. And who knew that The Notebook will stand the test of time and last forever? It's the love movie of all decades.
Mm-hmm.
It will outlive us all.
It totally will. And
It will.
as I'd said with, the fashion movies and everything, so quotable. You know,
Yes.
every girl goes to the Notebook.
Yes. Everyone. Everyone.
How does it feel being the stylist and the designer and everything behind everything to see the viewers take all of that in and dress like the characters that you create?
It feels great. I try not to get too connected to all of that, because you can lose your focus. But it does feel really, really great. It's fantastic to see that it confirms that the work that I've been doing is received by the audience. It's an amazing confirmation.
You also just did a very big collaboration. Well, you have two collaborations, correct? You have Yellowstone for Ariat,
Yes,
and then the other one is Icon.
is iron.
Iron.
So the Paramount came to me and asked me if I would design a collection inspired by the characters in Yellowstone, and I was deeply honored. And I was able to do that. Justin and I actually designed it together, and then it's sold out instantly. It's sold out in the stores, and then most of the pieces are sold out online. And iron is an environment where I've teamed up with a gentleman who is passionate about the West as well, and wanted to go forward and showcase artisans who otherwise don't have a voice and bring more light to the Western community. And he's asked me to come on board to assist him with being able to make that contribution. And I again felt honored in order to do so. So we have a rodeo. They're called rodeos, but they're not as athletic as bronc riding, because in the state of California, it's been banned, rodeos, because PETA has a concern for the safety of the animals. So the iron rodeos are a bit they're considered luxurious because they're not that. And we do some barrel racing, we do some roping. The last iron rodeo was with the beautiful Latina women that ride side saddle, and the gentlemen who are very, very proficient trick horses, with riding horses and standing on horses and roping and all the things. It's quite incredible. So the next iron rodeo that we're doing, which is Iron 10, we're actually doing a pop-up where we're showcasing artisans to, again, sort of introduce them to the world, because there are people outside. Some people in the West know of their work, but people outside of that culture and arena aren't familiar with their work at all. So we're going to do that, in addition to showcasing also equine professionals and artists that are just doing what they do.
You just got me flustered because I am a former barrel racer.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
fascinating.
Yeah. I'm just like, it's just getting better
Yeah.
every word we speak. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh, so we are going to link everything to Iron, to Ariat, and Yellowstone. Where can people find you on social media?
They can find me at Johnetta Boone on Instagram. It's my name. And then while I do have a Facebook account, it's not very well used, so I would recommend on Instagram is the easiest way to connect.
And what should we be looking for Jonetta's works on the screen soon, hopefully?
Well, I'm just waiting on the next project to come about. We're not quite sure what's happening with the next part of the Yellowstone entity. So we're all just sitting back and getting other things done while we wait. Yeah.
So we're all just going to be tuning into 1923 right now.
Yes.
Which is coming out, right?
Yes, that's right. Tuning into 1923 for sure.
Oh my goodness. Johnetta, like, I cannot thank you enough right now. You've just made my life. To be able to sit here and talk fashion and all of your work that so many people have seen and don't even know what goes into the behind the scenes, to be able to crack that and be able to hear it from you, is I'm gonna cry. Yes. So I need to get off because I'm gonna mess up my makeup, which I spent a lot of time on. And I'm gonna let you get back to your day. So I am Tatiana Ryan. This is the Businessy Podcast, and this has been the iconic Johnetta Boone.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. It's been such a pleasure this week.